Okay, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another edition of Boon or Bust, and I'm joined by my erstwhile colleague, Mr. Peter Hind, to discuss and debate some topic du jour as we sit here. And I wanted to kick things off, Peter, because we just had the World Economic Forum in Davos, a couple of weeks ago.
That's right.
So much news, so much content coming out of that. And I presented yesterday to a room full of tech leaders. And I kind of used a bit tongue-in-cheek, a little bit of French. My French is schoolboy at best. But I said to them, that the mot de l'année, the word of the year coming out of Davos, is productivity.
Yeah.
I listened to a few of the panel sessions that were there, and essentially every road sort of headed towards we need to improve productivity. Growth is stagnating. And we cannot just grow by increasing revenue and business. We need to improve overall productivity as well. And indeed, our own RBA governor at the end of last year highlighted in several speeches that the thing that's holding us back is not growth, it's productivity. Productivity is stymieing innovation. It's stymieing our ability to compete on the world stage as well. And then I think what we've seen coming out of that, and I want to get some your thoughts on this piece, Peter, is that we talked in one of our earlier episodes about what keeps CEOs awake at night. And in 2025, we saw from the KPMG report, which is released every January, that Australian business leaders felt that digital transformation and the ability to drive revenue from that was the number one thing keeping them awake at night. So how's that changed, Peter? I could answer this, but I'm going to throw it to you.
Well, Matthew,
how's it changed over the last 12 months?
Thank you for the opportunity to respond to that, because there's been a dramatic change over the last 12 months. Between the 2025 report, the 2026 report, there's been a 24 percentage point increase in the CEOs saying their biggest concern is AI and emerging technologies. And that really surprised me in some ways, Matt, because it's not as if AI just materialized in 2025. We've had AI for a long time. We've had generative AI since 2022. So one thinks the more familiar you become with someone, the more comfortable you are with it.
Mm-hmm. So I'm interested to unpack that a bit more, Peter, kind of just the pair of us sitting here together. So when we think about concern is AI, are they concerned with AI, or are they concerned with the fact they've spent so much money and they're not getting value from it?
I don't know whether they've spent as much money as that, but I think what they're concerned about is there's so much discussion about it. Are they being left behind? Are their competitors ahead of it? And there's some interesting stats I've seen. If you talk to data executives and saying, are we getting a return on investment of what we're spending on AI? The vast majority say, no, we're not. But a very significant subgroup say, yeah, we're getting good returns. And I think what keeps CEOs awake at night is that 9 or 7 or 8% of people who are getting returns on it. Are they going to be the disruptors of their industry?
I think categorically yes, if they really are getting value on it. Because I've been having a lot of conversations lately where many organisations have been running sort of headfirst into developing proof of concepts for AI capabilities. And what that's actually led to is a very reactive approach, no long-term strategy. So you can see right now when you talk to CIOs within the Australian marketplace, many of them are saying, we got to get a strategy together here, because we've started down this path of AI deployment, yet we haven't really got an end game. And I would say to you, and I said this before in one of our podcasts, it was that classic airline magazine management moment, a couple of years ago, where the CEO got off the plane and, as I said before, got on and said, right, Mr. and Mrs. CIO, you got to do AI. So they all, yes, sir, jumped up, started doing the AI and the POCs. Now, a couple of years later, the CEO who has directed them to do this is saying, hang on a minute. I told them all to do this, but I'm not quite sure where the value is. I'm not quite sure of what guardrails we need to have in place.
Well, and my feeling, Matt, is often the ambitions people have had for AI have been quite, I'm going to say, minimalistic. I mean, we're using AI to create sales proposals, to generate emails, to create a PowerPoint presentation, all those personal productivity tools. But do we trust it to put it in the middle of our workflows and operational processes in our businesses? Do we trust it to make autonomous decisions for us? Really, I think the expectation on where there's going to be benefit from AI is through that sort of automation.
Mm-hmm. I think you're right. And at the end of the day, I mean, we talked about this in a few of the other sessions as well. But the interesting thing that really has changed is that lens the CEO now has on AI. Before it just wasn't there. So that's why we've seen that 24% jump year on year in terms of the importance of it and why it's keeping them awake at night.
But just let me come in on that, Matt. Is that concern from a general greater exposure to AI? You know, their children are talking AI. They go down to a restaurant out with the family. Somebody somewhere is talking about AI. And maybe that feels them, I don't understand this. Is that it?
I think there's certainly a degree of that. And I think at the end of the day, to the point you made, Peter, as well, there's concerns obviously about the governance side of things, security, hallucinations, all that good stuff. But I think you made it very clear, Peter. I mean, the number one real issue here is they're frightened they're going to get left behind. Mm-hmm. But in that fear of being left behind, they've got to put caution in place to make sure they don't get ahead of things too rapidly.
Well, and we live in Australia, and for those outside Australia, you may not know, but one of the most tragic examples of government investment was in a thing called robo-debt, where we thought there were enormous numbers of welfare cheats. We used machine learning, an early iteration of AI, to try and highlight who these cheats were, and tragic consequences results. People falsely accused of stealing money, people taking their own lives. So you can't just dive into AI with, and hope for the best. You've got to put guardrails around it.
I absolutely agree. I mean, I would say with the robo-debt, most have moved on from that now. I mean, particularly at the government layer. I mean, I know you talk to a lot of government CIOs in your day-to-day sort of interactions. And, we were only talking last week, Peter, about the, the defence CIO here in Australia, and he's all in on AI, right? We've heard him speak.
But he's put guardrails around it. He said, look, sovereignty of that AI, I don't want stuff going offshore. All that sort of stuff is very important to him.
It is very important to him. And I think the key thing here is that, and I was talking to the MD of a very large tech provider organisation which tends to have a colour blue around it earlier this week, Peter. And actually, what he was saying in the conversations, at that sort of level we're talking about here, is that they don't want to talk about technology. They don't want to talk about LLMs. They don't want to talk about GPUs. They want to talk about how do we make sure we've got the right guardrails in place? How do we make sure we've got sovereign capabilities? How do we make sure we're not exposing not just one part of government, but the whole of government potentially to the threats and concerns that could come from AI deployment?
Well, Matt, it's a bit like learning to swim for a toddler. You've got to let go of the boundary and cast yourself into the water to master swimming. And I think it's the same with AI. Yes, there's risks, but ultimately you've got to take the plunge. Mm-hmm. And I think people have got to learn, how do we build up a resilience, an understanding, a capability with AI? And that's finding places where we can start to get a better insight into it.
That's a good point. I want to bring something new into Boon or Bust with this episode, Peter, and some moving forward as well. And I think that we talk about a lot of things, but I wanted to start wrapping these sessions up with three kind of areas. What you need to know, why you need to know, and what you need to do about it. So if you think about what we're talking about here today, what you need to know is that the CEO is very much and very alert to what we're doing with AI within our organizations. That's what's keeping them awake at night. So
let me come in on that.
Yeah.
What you're saying is, as someone in an organization working for a CEO, presenting to a CEO, recognize that they are attuned to what AI might do for them.
Yeah, that's the why. Okay, that's the why you need to know. Why you need to know is because if you're not aware of how to position things effectively to the CEO and the board, then ultimately you're going to face the challenges of much harder questioning you might have. And I think what you need to do about it here, and you kind of touched on it a bit there, Peter, as well, in my view, is you need to get aligned within your organization. This isn't a tech challenge. It's a people challenge, it's a tech challenge, it's a data challenge, it's a finance challenge. So I think increasingly, if we're all ultimately responsible to that CEO, the head of the business, we need to take a collective approach to helping the CEO feel confident that what we're doing as a team of executives is actually driving the organization with its best foot forward as it considers its AI future.
You see, what I heard in there, Matt, is you have to analyze, investigate your own organization. Where are the pain points? Where are the bottlenecks? Where are the inefficiencies? Now, don't go tackling them all at once, but look for something high profile that's meaningful to everyone in the business, that gives you some track record of success. If you do it, tackle that one, build up a reputation, and go looking for other opportunities.
Exactly. At the end of the day, AI is potentially the biggest technology team sport I think organizations have ever faced, Peter.
Well, with that then, we'll go on and look, is there going to be a bubble with AI?
I think that's a great next session, Peter. Thank you.